Water spirits. They exist in African, German, and even Japanese cultures. This is a water spirit. This is a water spirit. And yeah, even this is a Japanese water spirit. So without further ado, let's grab a blanket, turn off your lights for true scary ghost stories about water spirits that happened not on the highway, but in the pond.
Water spirit. I was about 3 years old or so, and my sister was about 5. We were at our mom's friend's apartment that had a small pond in the back. My sister and I were in the back chasing some baby swan when our mom called us to come back towards the apartment. We came back squeezing through the bars of the fencing and watched the swan from there. They walked out of sight, and not much later after that did a being emerge from the water, which also seemed to appear as water itself. It picked us up and looked at us for a moment, but we started screaming, so it put us back down and submerged back into the pond. We ran in screaming to Mother what had just happened, and she told us that we were just daydreaming. But I remember it so well, both my sister and I. We never spoke about it until recently, and I wanted to know if anyone knows what this is or has had any similar experience. Thanks. Figure by the pond. Out of all the paranormal experiences I've witnessed, the one I'm about to tell is my strongest and most unexplainable. It wasn't a noise, nor a bump, nor a touch that could be brushed off as a product of an overactive imagination. It wasn't even a dream. What I saw was a full-bodied apparition, and I'll never forget it. My great-uncle Henry had just gotten married. It was summertime and pleasantly warm. My dad and I didn't make it in time for the wedding, so we went straight to the reception, which was being held at a country club on the golf course at dusk. The whole entire club was emptied out and filled with my family. The decor inside was truly beautiful, and the food was great. I was 12 years old at the time. My cousins and I, being the kids that we were, decided to play outside near the back of the country club. The back consisted of a small porch and a small field of grass. There was a short stone wall that surrounded the small field, and beyond that was a hill of grass that led to a golf cart road, the green, and then a pond. Soon, my cousins got bored of the outdoors and decided to go inside, leaving my cousin Florence, who was 10 at the time, and I outside alone. We both decided it'd be fun to stand around by the pond and talk. We happily strolled down the hill past the road and to the edge of the pond. It was there at that moment where I saw a figure standing across the pond. It stood there for a moment and then began gliding from side to side. The figure didn't have a human shape. I can best describe it as a blob, a tall, white, thin blob. Maybe 6 feet tall? Another way I could describe it, and bear with me on how cliche this sounds, would be a person wearing a white sheet. Only the texture was not a sheet, and it was glowing. I know it couldn't have been a person because of the way it moved, how it glided so gracefully. I only know it couldn't have been a person because Florence couldn't see it. I even moved her head in the direction of the figure, and nope. She saw nothing. I could only see it. So, I ran. I regret running. But at 12 years old, it was the only thing I could think of doing. The figure didn't feel threatening at all, but I was confused, causing me to become afraid. Florence was freaked out because I was freaked out and began shouting, "Wait! Where are you going?" I turned around to answer, looking back to the pond, and the figure was gone. It is still a mystery to me. I have no idea what that thing was or what it wanted, or why only I could see it. If anyone has any insight on the matter, please comment. Thank you. The water spirit. The water spirit, or Jala Pisach. Today, I'm going to narrate about an incident which happened to my grandfather when he was 16 years old. Most of the people in our town make a living by jobs related to temple activities. So my grandfather also used to work in the temple. During festival season, he used to go to the temples in distant places to earn some extra money. Once, he went for such a festival, came back after a week, and started his normal chores. It's mandatory to be clean before entering the temple premises. So, my grandfather used to take a bath in a pond near to the temple before sunrise. My great-grandfather, my grandfather's father, also used to work in the same temple, so they used to go to the pond together. My granddad used to dive into the water and have a great time. His father used to finish his bath and go to the temple early and let his son play in the water for a while. But that day, he got worried as my granddad did not come to the temple, even after a couple hours. Tensed, my great-grandfather asked one of his friends to go and fetch my granddad. When the friend went near to the pond, he saw my grandfather floating in the water, but his eyes were open and was enjoying what he was doing. The friend tried his very best to convince my grandfather to get out of the water, but he would deny all the time. In the end, the friend got frustrated and called a couple more of the guys and plunged into the water. But to their surprise, my grandfather dived in and did not come up for almost 5 minutes. Everybody thought he had drowned, but after a while, he came out of the water. Then, they struggled very hard to pull him out. Once out of the water, my grandfather started talking in a different voice and started abusing everybody. Later, his father came, pacified him, and took him home. Once at home, he kept on insisting that he's not clean and wants to go to the pond and take a bath, but his father convinced him and made him sleep, even though he was worried by the sudden change in his boy's attitude, but ignored it at that point in time. My granddad slept the whole day and woke up in the evening when his father came home from work. At that time, he looked normal and had supper with the rest of the family. Everybody slept after supper but my great-grandfather, and when he was about to sleep, he heard a noise from the nearby room. What he saw baffled him. My grandfather had got out from his bed and was walking towards the front door as if in trance. His eyes were closed, and he walked straight towards the well near to our house, and he climbed onto the fence and was about to jump. Seeing this, his father came running and caught him at last minute, took him back to home. These things continued for a week's time. The whole family was worried about my grandfather's health, and was also deteriorating as well. After learning about these happenings, priests of the temple called upon an astrologer to come find out what was wrong with my grandfather. The person came and saw my grandfather and in an instant understood that he was possessed by a Jala Pisach, or water spirit. Jala Pisach are spirits of people who died accidentally in water. That's why people who are possessed by water spirits have high tendency to be near water all the time. And that's what had happened to my grandfather. Then, he did some calculations and said that he was possessed by the spirit when he went for that festival. Later, my grandfather also confirmed that he had felt someone try to drown him when he took a bath in the pond, but he had luckily escaped. The astrologer gave him a very powerful prayer and asked him to recite it twice every day for 30 days, which he did promptly and was freed from the evil effects of the entity. He lived a very happy life after that, and had 5 kids, one of them my mother. After narrating the story to me, he wrote down the powerful hymn and gave it to me. Said, I should have it as I am the eldest of his grandchildren. Thank you for taking the time to read my story, and I hope you liked it. I would love to hear your comments and feedback.